The reading for December 17th is Jeremiah 33, verses 7 through 16. I will restore the fortunes of Judah and the fortunes of Israel, and rebuild them as they were at first. I will cleanse them from all the guilt of their sin against me. I will forgive all the guilt of their sin and rebellion against me. And this city shall be to me a name of joy, a praise, and a glory before all the nations of the earth, who shall hear of all the good that I do for them. They shall fear and tremble because of all the good and all the prosperity that I shall provide for it. Thus says the Lord, in this place out of which you say, it is a waste without man or beast, in the cities of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem that are desolate without man or inhabitant or beast, there shall be heard again the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom, the voice of the bride, the voices of those who sing as they bring thank offerings to the house of the Lord. Give thanks to the Lord of hosts, for the Lord is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. For I will restore the fortunes of the land as at first, says the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, in this place that is waste, without man or beast, and in all of its cities there shall again be inhabitants of shepherds, resting their flocks. In the cities of the hill country, in the cities of Shephelah, and in the cities of Negev, in the land of Benjamin, in the places about Jerusalem, and in the cities of Judah, flocks shall again pass under the hands of the one who counts them, says the Lord. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will fulfill the promise I made to the house of Israel and to the house of Judah. In those days and at that time I will cause a righteous branch to spring up for David, and he shall execute justice and righteousness in the land. In those days Judah will be saved, and Jerusalem will dwell securely, and this is the name by which it will be called: the Lord is our righteousness. Again, we hear that name. The Lord is our righteousness, and tells us that everything that he's talking about here, which may seem vague and distant for us, is actually something that's connected to what Christ is doing. Jeremiah is speaking of a return from exile. In fact, the people of Israel were driven out of their land into Babylon and were in exile. This is when the book of Daniel takes place, when they are out of the land, or at least the nobles and leaders are out of the land. And then they come back, and then he says there's a restoration that is coming. The interesting thing is, when you look at how the people spoke in the day of Jesus, even though they were allowed to return after Persia beat Babylon and Cyrus allowed them to come back, they still spoke as if they were in exile. They never really were their own country again. They never really had their own governance again. The promises made to David, the kingdom was never that big again. They were still in exile. And so God says there will be one that is coming, a branch. There's someone from the line of David that will come, and he will be your righteousness. And that's what tells us that anybody that reigned before, there's in fact a guy named Zerubbabel that comes and he reigns, but he's merely an under puppet for the regime in Persia. And then there's a time in which the Maccabees rebel, but they're not from the line of Judah. And they set up this small rebel kingdom, but it falls fairly quickly in human events. And none of those things were the return to their power and to saying that salvation, redemption has come. But when Christ comes, he begins the process in which this will happen. Notice when you get to Romans, it talks about Abraham being promised the whole earth. Notice when you get to Revelation, it talks about a new heavens and a new earth. In fact, it begins the process in which the people of God will not only inherit a small land, a strip of land in the Middle East, but when the people of God will inherit the whole earth. And that's begun with the one who is called our righteousness, who takes the penalty for the fact that the people of God had rebelled against him. And that's what's promised here in Jeremiah 33 is you are in exile, but in a sense, the one who will lead you out of exile will come, and his name will be the Lord is our righteousness.